The mom of that 6-year-old that shot his teacher has just recently did an interview.
1 month to the day, a Virginia grand jury indicted Deja Taylor, charging her with child neglect and failing to secure her gun. When I talked to the 25-year-old and her grandfather, who now has custody of her son, she said she wants people to know she's a good mom.
This interview revealed a lot more about the mother than I'm sure she thought it would. She wants people to think she's a good mom. I think this interview did the complete opposite of that, and I'm gonna tell you why. Starting off the interviewee asked, does the child talk about this incident at all? And the mother is like, no. But then the grandfather says he talks a lot more about the days leading up to the shooting.
Does he talk about the incident?
No. He talks a lot more about the day before or the 2 days before than he does about January 6th.
So which one is it? Does he not talk about the day of the shooting, or does he talk a lot more about the days leading up to the shooting? And I think it's probably the grandfather that's correct here, because I'm sure he's talking a lot more about the days leading up to justify the shooting, and we'll talk about why. But yes, I'm sure he's talking about trying to justify the shooting as opposed to just not saying anything about it. But yeah, he's talking about that day. Quit lying. That's strike one for this mom. Already shows a slight lack of accountability. But the lack of accountability is going to be glaring by the end of this interview.
Shortly after the shooting, the family released a statement saying, "Our son suffers from an acute disability and was under a care plan at the school that included his mother or father accompanying him to class every day. The week of the shooting was the first week when we were not in class with him."
The key point of this interview was to stress that her son has an acute case of ADHD. Very, 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 very precise, because she says most kids can deal with their ADHD. Most kids can manage it, but her kid is just off the walls, okay?
What can you tell us specifically about your son's disability?
So he has ADHD. Some are able to have it at a very mild rate, but he's off the wall, doesn't sit still, ever.
And clearly he's off the walls. He's shooting his teacher. That goes without being said. Everybody else not everybody else, because there are a lot of cases of ADHD that's going on in the country, but the majority of people can get their kids under wraps to the point where they're not shooting their elementary school teacher, but yet she's still sitting here talking about my kid. I just don't know. I can't. That's strike 1.5. That might be strike 2, because it's like he's got medication. He should have a support system to where he shouldn't be off the walls, quote unquote. But let's proceed. She talks about the situation that got her son suspended. She says that her son went to go ask the teacher something in class, and the teacher told him to sit down, and he said fine and threw his hands up and accidentally knocked the phone out of her hand.
And then actually he ended up getting suspended the next day because he was in class. He was trying to tell her something, and she asked him to go sit back down. He threw his arms up, he said fine, and when he threw his arms up, he knocked her phone out of her hand on accident, and he got suspended for that.
But then the teacher says that he violently threw the phone to the ground.
Zwerner did not respond to ABC News' request for comment, but in a lawsuit, she says the student slammed the cell phone on the ground so hard that it cracked and shattered.
When you listen to her explanation of it, she says that he went to go ask the teacher something. The teacher said sit down. He said fine, and he accidentally hit it out her hand. Who sounds like they're telling that story? Like, who? It sounds like the kid said that first. That sounds like the kid's version of the story. And it sounds like the mom is running with the kid's version of this story. He says he accidentally hit it out of her hand. Teacher said he violently threw it. Who are you inclined to believe in this scenario? So far, I'm siding with the teacher, just because, she didn't shoot anybody yet. Her track record is clean, so I have no reason not to believe her. And it just sounds as if the mom is just saying exactly what her son said to her. Just because it's coming out of your mouth don't make it more truthful. And I thought it was funny. She said accidentally at the end, like, okay. And then they got this raspy voice lawyer that just, out of all the lawyers you could have picked for a particular case, you get the one that just seems extremely untrustworthy.
According to the suit, the child had a history of random violence and that he attacked students and teachers alike, both in and out of school.
Is that description accurate?
Whether it is or it isn't, the school enrolled him in September knowing all of the past behaviors.
What?
Now, I don't know if it's the voice or the squinty eyes or just his whole persona, but it just seems as if he's just not being 100% forthcoming, which, I mean, he shouldn't be. He's an attorney. He shouldn't be coming out with all the information on the news, but just something about him just gives me off vibes. Like, the mom can't even say that the gun was locked up. When they ask about the gun being locked up, look at her response.
Was the gun locked somewhere? It was locked somewhere.
She says she's willing to take responsibility because it's her son. Because he can't take responsibility for himself, is what she says.
You feel in any way responsible for the shooting?
Yes, of course. That is my son. So I am, as a parent, obviously willing to take responsibility for him because he can't take responsibility for himself.
But let me ask this because the interviewee didn't ask this. If they did, they probably cut it out the interview. If the gun was locked up, how did he have access to the gun still? Because just because the gun is locked up, quote unquote, which I don't believe, it still shouldn't be in arm's reach of any child. It's no point in locking it up if you're going to put it in the same room as the baby in their crib or something. There's no point to that. Step one is locking it up, but step two, where was the gun, ma'am? Because obviously she ain't trying to speak to that. The lawyer ain't trying to speak to that either. He says that no adults know how that gun got retrieved.
The gun used in the shooting was legally purchased by Taylor. She says it was kept locked away. Her attorney would not say how the 6-year-old got it.
How did your son access the gun?
Nobody knows.
No one knows. Let me just ask this, and I'll direct it to you, Jimmy. Is it that no one has asked him how he got it, or you're just not ready to reveal how he got it?
We're not ready to discuss that at this point. Yes, people have talked to him about that. I don't know that any adult knows exactly how he got the gun.
I'm sure there's at least one adult that knows how that gun got retrieved. We all know this is completely on the parent. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The fact that I feel like she's trying to push the blame on her child. Like she says she's willing to take responsibility, but in part of me feels like she's just trying to push the blame on her child and take no responsibility on her behalf of being a neglectful mother and leaving a firearm within arm's reach of a 6-year-old ADHD off-the-wall child. It seems as if you had a child that had ADHD to that extent, to the point where you know you can't control it, he's off the walls, why are you leaving firearms at arm's length for these children? Like, I'm mind boggled at that point. This is just, it's an ongoing cycle is what I see from this interview of a lack of responsibility. The mom isn't taking responsibility for her actions. The kid is talking about the days prior, in my mind, trying to justify his actions because he feels like he was wrongfully suspended because he accidentally hit the phone out the teacher's hand. That's the vibe they're trying to push off. Like, he shouldn't have been suspended because it was an accident, because he was just asking a question. He felt ignored. Like, they preface it real nice before that. But in reality, this is an ongoing cycle of taking no accountability within this family. Because let's peep game. There's something missing in this video. You got the mom. There's a couple things missing, but the main thing missing, you got the mom and you got a great grandfather. Where's the father? Where is the male figure that made this kid? Where is his influence at? I'm pretty sure I know where that man is at. There's only a couple places he could be. And it's a shame that you got this mother that is unfortunately put into her scenario, but I think that plays a big part in how this ended up too. I highly doubt that the child was taking any responsibility living under that roof. Like, my guess is he would act the ass most days in class. She would find a way to justify his actions with his ADHD that he has, and they would let bygones be bygones. And she thought that academically he was doing well, is what she said, but obviously his attitude was the same. And then the punishment at the end. They say that 6 years, she said that 6 years she doesn't think is fair, but she's willing to do it for her son. She's willing to take that L for her son.
Deja faces up to 6 years in prison. She says she doesn't think that that's a fair punishment, but added, quote, anything for my baby. Her lawyer says that they're hoping to work out a plea deal. As for her son, they say that he's thriving and getting the treatment that he needs. They say, interestingly, he doesn't talk about the incident at all, that he talks more often about the days leading up to it.
That is the icing on the cake, letting me know that she takes no responsibility. She is the parent in this scenario. The kid got access to the gun, but yet they don't know how that happened. The gun was locked up. I mean, the gun was put away.
Nobody knows.
No one knows.
Just pathetic. It's just a pathetic outing for this mom. And I just wish she didn't do this interview. I wish she would just take more responsibility in her actions. But, we can all wish. But yes, this is just my opinion on the matter. Let me know what y'all think down below. Like, subscribe, hit the share if you feel obliged. And I'm going to catch you on the flip. But
We're not ready to discuss that at this point.